Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving into the world of Michel de Montaigne's essays.
Oh, interesting.
It's a collection of personal reflections on a staggering range of topics from the 16th century.
From the 1500s. Wow.
You might be thinking,
Yeah.
essays from the 1500s. Sounds a bit dry.
A little bit, yeah.
But trust us,
Okay.
Montaigne was way ahead of his time.
Really?
He's witty, relatable, and tackles questions we still grapple with today, like how to live a good life, the nature of truth, and the limits of human knowledge.
So we'll explore his unique writing style, his fascinating life, and some of the most thought-provoking ideas from his essays.
Exactly.
Okay.
Get ready for some surprising historical insights, philosophical nuggets you can actually apply to your life,
Interesting.
and maybe even a chuckle or two along the way.
All right, I'm ready.
So to kick things off, who was this guy Montaigne?
Well, he was a nobleman, a scholar, and a writer who lived in France
Okay.
during a time of great upheaval.
Upheaval? Like what kind of upheaval?
Well, think religious wars changing social norms.
Oh, wow.
It was a world in flux, much like our own in some ways.
I see.
And his essays were born out of his own self-reflection and his desire to understand the human condition.
That's interesting.
He was a voracious reader drawing from ancient philosophy history
Okay.
and even his personal experience.
So he was really trying to make sense of the world around him.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned his writing style being unique.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how essays aren't always the most exciting reads.
You're right.
So what makes Montaigne's essays different?
Well, he had this really conversational style.
Conversational.
Almost like he's just sitting across from you, chatting about life philosophy and everything in between.
So not your typical structured essay with like a thesis statement and all
No,
that.
not at all.
Interesting.
He jumps between topics, uses anecdotes, constantly questions assumptions.
Wow.
In fact, his writing was so unconventional for his time that modern editors actually had to add paragraph breaks
Paragraph breaks.
to make it easier for us to read.
That's wild. So they had to reformat his work to make it more digestible for modern readers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fascinating.
It reflects his belief that learning is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
You know, just exploring ideas wherever they may lead.
Okay, so we've got this unconventional writer grappling with big questions in a time of turmoil.
Yes.
What are some of the key ideas that jumped out at you when you were reading his essays?
Well, one that really struck me was his exploration of animal intelligence.
Animal intelligence.
He was skeptical of human claims to superiority, and he challenged the notion that we're so different from other animals.
Animal intelligence in the 1500s. I mean, was that even a concept people were considering back then?
Not really, which is what makes Montaigne so ahead of his time.
Right.
For example, he tells this incredible story about a lion in ancient Rome
Lion.
that recognized and showed gratitude to a former slave who had once helped it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So this lion named Androcles had escaped from captivity.
And was later captured and thrown into the arena to fight.
Oh, no.
And guess who was chosen as its opponent?
I don't know the slave.
Yes, the very same slave who had helped him before.
Wow.
And when the lion recognized Androcles, it didn't attack him.
Real.
It approached him gently, almost affectionately.
That's incredible.
The crowd was astonished.
That they were.
And this story really challenged people's thinking about the supposed divide between humans and animals.
So Montaigne was using the story to kind of question our assumptions about human exceptionalism,
Exactly.
to say that maybe we're not as different from animals as we like to think.
Yeah, and for Montaigne, the story raised a fundamental question.
What's that?
If animals are capable of such complex behaviors, how much of what we consider uniquely human is truly unique?
It's a good question, one that we're still grappling with today.
Right.
It makes you wonder if we've been underestimating animal intelligence all along.
It does, and that leads us to another key theme that Montaigne explored, the power of imagination and fear. Oh, that's interesting.
He was fascinated by how our minds can both heal and harm us.
That sounds incredibly relevant to our modern world, where anxiety and fear seem to be at an all-time high.
Right.
I'm ready to dive deeper, but first, for our listeners who are looking to cultivate a more mindful and positive outlook, I highly recommend checking out the Affirmify Journey YouTube channel.
Oh, yes. That's a great resource for motivational content and positive affirmations that can help you navigate the challenges of modern life.
Now, back to Montaigne and the power of imagination and fear.
Okay.
What did he have to say about that?
Well, he believed that fear particularly the fear of death, was one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior.
Right.
And he observed how fear can manifest physically in both humans and animals,
Right.
how it can completely overwhelm our rational faculties.
It can be completely debilitating, can it? I mean, we've all experienced that feeling of being paralyzed by fear.
Exactly. He uses the example of someone trembling on a precipice,
Uh-huh.
a primal instinctive reaction that even the most stoic philosophy can't erase.
Right. It's that feeling of being completely at the mercy of something beyond your control.
Yeah.
Like when you're about to give a big presentation or you're facing a major life decision and your heart is pounding in your chest even though you know you should be calm.
That's it. And Montaigne asks, even though our world has changed drastically since the 16th century, are we still fundamentally driven by the same primal fears?
Are we really that different from our ancestors who faced down wild animals and plagues?
Or have our anxieties just taken on new, more modern forms?
The good question.
Right.
We might not be running from saber-toothed tigers anymore, but we have plenty of other things to worry about.
Exactly. That's Montaigne's point. We might dress differently, speak differently, but the core of who we are, how we react to the world, remains remarkably consistent.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes his work so insightful and enduring.
I see.
He helps us to see ourselves more clearly, to understand our own human nature.
Speaking of understanding ourselves, Montaigne was also really honest in his essays, wasn't he? I mean, he didn't shy away from talking about his own flaws and weaknesses.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so relatable.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to present himself as some kind of perfect sage.
No.
He was just a guy trying to figure things out, same as us.
I like that.
And he was incredibly open about his struggles with illness, his fear of death, even his anxieties about public speaking.
It's refreshing to see that kind of vulnerability in a writer, especially one from that era.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're not alone in your own struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not preaching from some ivory tower.
No.
He's inviting you to join him on this journey of self-discovery with all its messiness and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that's what makes his work so powerful.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're all human. We all have our flaws, and that's okay.
Now, before we go any further, I think this is a good place to pause and reflect on what we've learned so far. Montaigne's essays, written over 400 years ago, still resonate with us today because he tackles those universal questions about what it means to be human.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
His honesty, his curiosity, his willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, these are qualities that make him a timeless writer.
We'll dive back into Montaigne's thought-provoking ideas right after this short message.
Sounds good. He was also a skeptic.
A skeptic? Really?
Yeah, he questioned everything, even his own perceptions. You see, Montaigne was acutely aware of the limitations of human knowledge and how our senses can deceive us.
But if we can't even trust our own senses, how can we ever know anything for sure?
Right.
Doesn't that make the whole pursuit of knowledge seem kind of pointless?
That's a great question. And it's one that Montaigne wrestled with throughout his essays. But for him, skepticism wasn't about giving up on the search for truth. It was about being humble.
Humble? How so?
Well, he believed that being skeptical meant acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we could be wrong. And that's a powerful concept, isn't it? Especially in today's world where everyone seems so certain about everything.
It is. I mean, how many times have we been absolutely convinced of something only to find out later that we were totally off base? It's humbling, to say the least.
Exactly. And Montaigne would say that's a good thing.
Right.
Because those moments when we realize we were wrong are opportunities for growth. They force us to re-examine our beliefs, to be more open to new information, to consider different perspectives. And ultimately, that makes us wiser.
So skepticism for Montaigne wasn't about being cynical or closed-minded.
No.
It was about being open to the possibility that we might be wrong, that
Right.
there's always more to learn.
Yes. It's about embracing doubt and questioning our assumptions. And that's a valuable lesson for anyone, regardless of their beliefs or background.
It makes you think about how much conflict and division could be avoided if we all approach the world with a bit more humility and a willingness to listen to each other.
I completely agree. Montaigne believed that true wisdom lies in recognizing the limits of our own knowledge and being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Now, we've talked a lot about Montaigne's ideas, but I have to admit, I'm also curious about the man himself.
Okay.
What was he like?
Well, from what we can gather from his essays, Montaigne was a complex and fascinating individual.
What do you mean? Give us the juicy details.
He was clearly very intelligent and well-read, But he was also deeply introspective and prone to melancholy.
Uh-huh.
He struggled with health issues throughout his life and lost many of his close friends and family members to illness and war. And these experiences shaped his worldview and his writing.
So he wasn't some detached philosopher sitting in an ivory tower pontificating about life. He was living and experiencing the full range of human emotions and challenges.
Exactly. And that's what makes his work so relatable. He doesn't shy away from talking about the difficult things, the painful things. He writes about grief, about loss, about the fear of death, and he does it with such honesty and vulnerability that it's impossible not to be moved by it.
It sounds like he was a man of great depth and sensitivity. And despite all the challenges he faced, he still managed to find humor and joy in life.
You're right. He definitely had a sense of humor. In fact, one of the things I enjoy most about Montaigne's writing is his wit. He could be quite sarcastic and self-deprecating.
Really? Give us an example. What kind of things did he joke about?
Well, he often poked fun at human vanity and our tendency to take ourselves too seriously.
Okay.
He once wrote that people will go out of their way to hunt for a clever saying, even if it means distorting the meaning of their own argument to make it fit.
So he's kind of calling out those people who shoehorn quotes into conversations just to sound smart.
Exactly. And Montaigne was doing this centuries before social media made it a daily occurrence. He also loved pointing out the contradictions of human nature, how we can be both noble and selfish-wise, and foolish, brave, and cowardly. He saw the humor in the absurdity of it all.
I can definitely relate to that. I think we've all had those moments where we're like, why am I like this?
And Montaigne would probably just chuckle and say, "Don't worry, we're all a bit ridiculous sometimes. It's part of being human."
It's kind of liberating to hear that, isn't it? It takes the pressure off to be perfect.
It does. And that's part of the beauty of Montaigne's work.
Yeah.
He reminds us that it's okay to be flawed, to be contradictory, to be a work in progress.
He makes philosophy feel so much more approachable and human.
And you know what? He believed that humor was a valuable tool for learning and self-discovery.
Really?
He felt that laughter could help us to see ourselves more clearly, to let go of our rigid beliefs, and to embrace the complexity of life.
So it's not just about laughing for the sake of laughing. It's about using humor to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Precisely. And I think that's a valuable lesson for all of us. We could all benefit from taking ourselves a little less seriously and embracing the absurdity of life.
I love that. Now, we've talked about Montaigne's skepticism, his honesty, his wit.
Yeah.
But there's another aspect of his work that I find really intriguing, his emphasis on practical wisdom.
Yes. Montaigne was all about applying philosophy to everyday life.
Okay.
He wasn't interested in abstract theories that had no bearing on how we actually live.
So he wasn't just talking the talk, he was walking the walk.
Exactly. He believed that true wisdom wasn't just about accumulating knowledge, but about using it to make better decisions, to navigate relationships, to live a more fulfilling life.
It sounds like a combination of common sense, good judgment, and a strong moral compass.
You could say that. And Montaigne believed that this kind of practical wisdom was essential for living a good and meaningful life. But it's not something you learn from a textbook.
So how do we develop this practical wisdom?
Montaigne believed that it comes from a combination of experience, reflection, and observation. He was a big proponent of learning from our own mistakes as well as from the mistakes of others.
So it's about paying attention to what's going on around us, learning from the past, and constantly striving to make better choices.
You got it. And he also believed that reading, especially reading the works of great thinkers from the past, could help us develop our practical wisdom.
So hit the books, folks. But it's not just about passively absorbing information.
Right. It's about actively engaging with the ideas, reflecting on them, and thinking about how they can be applied to our own lives.
Now I'm starting to see why Montaigne's work has resonated for centuries. He's not just offering abstract theories, he's giving us practical tools for living a better life.
And you know what else he stressed?
What's that?
The importance of self-knowledge.
Oh, that classic know thyself idea. But what did Montaigne mean by that?
He believed that understanding our own strengths, weaknesses, biases, and tendencies was crucial for making good decisions.
Okay.
If we know ourselves well, we're less likely to make choices that we'll regret later on.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like knowing your limits and being honest with yourself about what you're capable of.
Exactly. Montaigne was all about self-reflection, constantly examining his own motives and behaviors. And he believed that the more we understand ourselves, the better equipped we are to navigate the complexities of life.
And it's not just about looking inward, is it? Montaigne also emphasized the importance of learning from others.
Absolutely. He believed that we could gain valuable insights by observing the lives of people we admire,
Right.
by reading history and biography, and by engaging in thoughtful conversations with people who have different perspectives than our own.
So surround yourself with good people, learn from the past, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
That's the Montaigne way.
Yeah.
And don't forget to laugh along the way. Remember, he had a great sense of humor.
This is all making me want to go back and reread Montaigne's essays with a fresh perspective.
Yeah,
There's so much wisdom packed into those pages.
I encourage you to do so. You'll be amazed at how relevant his observations are even centuries later.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've explored Montaigne's unique writing style, his fascinating life, and some of the most thought-provoking ideas from his essays. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
We have. But hopefully this deep dive has sparked some new ideas for you to ponder. And if you're looking for more thought-provoking content to expand your knowledge.
I highly recommend checking out lingopediamagazine.com.
Oh, yeah.
They offer fantastic courses and ebooks on philosophy, literature, and history. Perfect for those who want to delve deeper into Montaigne's world and explore other fascinating subjects.
It's a great resource for anyone who loves learning and exploring new ideas.
And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Montaigne's world, don't forget to hit that like button, share this episode with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future explorations.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive.
Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.
One of the things he really emphasized was the importance of resilience.
Okay, resilience. I hear that word a lot these days. But what did Montaigne mean by it?
Well, for Montaigne, resilience was all about learning to cope with adversity. Remember, he lived through some pretty tough times, plagues, wars, the loss of loved ones. He knew firsthand how challenging life could be.
So his philosophy wasn't just theoretical, it was forged in the fire of real-life experience.
Exactly. And one of the key strategies he developed for dealing with adversity was what he called philosophical detachment.
Philosophical detachment, that sounds pretty deep. Break that down for me.
Basically, it's about recognizing that we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we react to it.
So it's about letting go of the things we can't change and focusing on what we can. Kind of like that serenity prayer idea.
You got it. Montaigne believed that by accepting the things we can't change, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. It doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent to the world around us. It just means we choose our battles wisely.
It makes you think about all the energy we waste stressing about things that are ultimately beyond our control.
Right. And Montaigne would say, why torture yourself? Focus your energy on what you can influence: your own thoughts, your actions, your character. Focus on living a virtuous and meaningful life regardless of external circumstances.
That's powerful advice. So philosophical detachment is about choosing our battles wisely and focusing on what we can control. What other nuggets of wisdom did Montaigne offer for navigating life's challenges?
Well, he was a big advocate for moderation. He believed that excess in anything, whether it's pleasure work or even virtue, could be harmful.
So find that sweet spot, that balance in life.
Precisely. He also stressed the importance of living in the present moment. He was very critical of our tendency to dwell on the past or worry about the future. And he encouraged his readers to savor each day and appreciate the simple pleasures of life and to find joy in the here and now.
I love that. It's a good reminder to slow down and appreciate what we have.
It is. And it's a message that's more relevant than ever in our fast-paced, hyper-connected world. We're so often caught up in the whirlwind of daily life that we forget to breathe, to be present, to appreciate the beauty that surrounds us.
Montaigne is like that wise friend who reminds us to stop and smell the roses, so to speak.
Exactly. And to remember that life is a journey, not a destination. It's about savoring the experience, learning and growing along the way, and embracing the full spectrum of human emotions.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored Montaigne's unique writing style, his fascinating life, and some of the most thought-provoking ideas from his essays. We've talked about animal intelligence, fear death, skepticism, humor, resilience, and the importance of practical wisdom.
We have. It's been quite a journey through the mind of a Renaissance man.
It really has. And I think Montaigne would be delighted to know that his work is still sparking such lively conversations centuries later.
Absolutely. He was a master of the essay form, and his insights into the human condition are as relevant today as they were in the 16th century.
If you're ready to embark on your own Montaigne adventure, I highly recommend checking out lingopediamagazine.com.
It's a great resource for those who want to delve deeper into Montaigne's world and explore other fascinating topics through their courses and ebooks.
And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Montaigne's essays, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends.
We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration of ideas that matter.
Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.